Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler,
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
and we are back with an episode for your 9-7 Baltimore Orioles. Some good, some bad. But before that, just want to check with you guys. How are you doing, Jess?
Pretty good. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, So, yeah, I mean, as far as the Orioles are concerned, well, we'll get into it more, but I haven't been thoroughly impressed like I was hoping to be. So, we'll talk.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Lead people
Yeah.
to stick around a little bit. I like that.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a well thought out tactic on my part. So.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
He spent a lot of time on that one.
Eli, how about you?
I think I can also say I am not thoroughly impressed. But I don't know, seen some good things, and I'm about to go on a little work trip down to Houston. So personally, I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna get put up in a hotel. I'm gonna have a free car and some food to eat.
Love
So
that.
yeah, can't argue with it.
Yeah, that's all. Are you seeing any baseball while you're there, or is that just no time for that?
I hadn't thought about it, but about 2 hours ago, I said I should go to Minute Maid Park just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at the Astros schedule as we get into the first start of this episode. Yeah, see, they're playing against the Blue Jays.
Oh,
You can see two teams I'm really not that big a fan of, but
yeah, that's a tough one. I guess you're rooting for the Astros in that series, but
I think I probably would. I think my girlfriend would be very upset with me if I didn't. So
that's fair.
Yeah,
Cool.
but I can say the Astros are 7-9. Where Jesse and I are over here, not impressed at all, and things could be worse. They definitely could be worse. We could be the Astros.
I mean,
I might
if
take
we
the
ended the
last
season with I'll take the 100 wins by the end of the year. I'll be good with that. So
Fair enough. All right, well, let's get into the Orioles. As we're recording this on Monday the 17th. Just a quick recap of what the O's have done so far. They started the year in Boston, went 1-2 in that series, then went to Texas, took 2 out of 3 from the Rangers there, came home, lost 2 out of 3 to the Yankees, although they did win the home opener. Then took care of business against the Athletics, taking 3 out of 4 against a bad team there. And then they just finished up a 3-game series in Chicago. A weird series where they kind of won a game they felt like they shouldn't have won, lost a game they should have won, but they ended up going 2-1 against the White Sox there. So Jess, you said you're not as thoroughly impressed, and Eli, you kind of echoed that as well. But I guess I'll go with you, Jess. So I don't know. I've got a couple things in the outline to discuss, but maybe explain your feelings there. Why are you not as thoroughly impressed as you hoped you would be?
Well, I mean, we could just start off by, we won opening day, had a very depressing game 2 of the season. And that kind of set a bad tone. I mean, I feel like so far we've been playing some pretty bad teams and teams that have been playing badly. We have, I think, benefited from a pretty easy schedule so far to this point. And obviously 9-7, we expect, I think we all expect it to be slightly above 500 by the end of the year. So from that perspective, from strictly a win-loss record perspective, how can you be that upset with everything? But I'm sort of more disappointed. The offense has been so good, which we're going to talk about. And we've had a lot of close games, a lot of come from behind wins, a lot of really exciting theatrical sort of excitement for a baseball fan. But in terms of the quality and stuff like that, I feel like the O's are a little lacking from what I would hope.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll push back on one thing, just like the quality of opponent. I think that these last 2 opponents, I think the White Sox probably aren't all that good this year. It doesn't feel very good. The A's, we know they're terrible. But I think prior to that, the Yankees and Red Sox are formidable. I know they lost 4 out of the 6 games against them. But the Rangers are the top team in the AL West right now. They've gone all in these last 2 off seasons, bringing in free agents. Taking 2 out of 3 on the road against them feels pretty good, especially after they kind of handled business against the Phillies to open the year. So yeah, I guess I'll push back on the quality of the opponent a little bit, but I will agree for sure that the Orioles have not been nearly as crisp as you would like to see them be.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also when we played the Red Sox. I mean, the Red Sox are the Red Sox, but they didn't play like the Red Sox, and they played horrendously against us. I mean, the pitching was an absolute disaster for them. So I mean, I hear what you're saying, and maybe I am kind of looking at these teams a little more negatively than I should be. And I understand that, there are a lot of like mechanical things teams at this stage are working out and stuff like that. But at the same time, these games matter. These games are just as important as the games at the end of the year and stuff like that. And yeah, so I think we lost a little bit of an opportunity to take advantage of some teams that were not playing very well. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Fair enough. Eli, do you want to jump in and kind of just explain maybe how you're feeling?
Yeah, for me, like it isn't so much about quality of the opponent. The biggest thing that I'm worried about is just the starting rotation. I feel like through and through, we have had pretty uninspiring performances all around. I think Kyle Gibson's been a positive note. I think Grayson Rodriguez, if you subtract every first inning that he's had, is a pretty positive note. But besides that, the Orioles bullpen has the third most innings in all of baseball. Our team ERA is 5.27, which is 26 out of 30 teams. We are just struggling as a pitching staff to get through these games. Hyde is having to run people out there, like our bullpen arms are getting used regularly on back-to-back days, and you really just don't want to see that high of a usage this early in the season. Starting pitchers should be a little fresher. Everything should be going quote unquote according to plan at this point. And we all talked about how much starting pitching depth we have, but you take Bradish away, you select Grayson in, and it starts to feel a lot thinner than it actually is. We still have Spencer Watkins, but as far as the quality innings go, with what's on the team right now, out of that starting rotation, you feel like there is less and less upside. And it's what we talked about all offseason. We talked about the Orioles needed to go and get an impact pitcher, and we didn't do that. And now, one of our big acquisitions has been optioned to AAA, and we're hurting.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of as you said, Eli, it was an expected thing. We knew the rotation wasn't, it was deep, but not overly talented. And I think the ceiling was fairly low, all things considered, because Grayson could break out, but he's going to be on an innings limit most of this year anyway, because he's not going to go from 70 some to 200 innings in a year. And Irvin, I mean, we'll talk about Cole Irvin here in a second. It was one of those things that I had some concerns about when the trade went down. I mean, I get the play there. You get him for years of control, but there's not a ton of physical skills there that really drive you wild as a baseball fan. So it's still shocking that he's been demoted to AAA this early in the year, because those 3 starts were just absolutely atrocious. So I guess we're talking about the rotation a lot, and I think it's something we talked about and everybody talked about during the offseason. It's continued to be an issue now. Eli, do you see this being fixed without some sort of influx of external talent, or can the Orioles sort this out by Irvin taking a stint in AAA, figuring something out, Bradish getting healthy? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's reason to fully hit the panic button yet, and I don't want to come off like I was insinuating that. I think that Dean Kramer will come around. I think that he will be better than he has. I think that Gibson will continue to be fine. I think Bradish, when he comes back, will settle in, start to look good. He was having a clean start until obviously was taken out by that line drive. So there are reasons to be optimistic in terms of having better than we have had. But it was just, we're talking early impressions here, and that was something we had all talked about, and it's being reinforced. So I think that there isn't reason to panic until you're at least a month or two into the season and seeing this continue. We do have upside that we saw last year from Bradish and Kramer, and can expect, to see that again, I think. But it's the early returns have not been great, of course.
Yeah, fair enough.
The main concern, which I think Eli is basically saying here is not that the Orioles don't have depth. I mean, in the past, we've had real problems with depth and having to go to pitchers that were not qualified really to be major league pitchers and have them. We had the knuckleballer, come out last year for a start because we were so desperate. So this year, the Orioles have a different concern with the starting pitching, right? The problem is the front end of the rotation, right? We don't have a normal 1 through 5 rotation. We have 2 3s, 3 4s, and like 4 5s, right? Like available in our system, right? So that's the problem, right? And it's gonna be difficult. We'll make the best out of it, and hopefully we don't have any, we don't put anybody out there that is seriously unqualified to take a major league mound as a starting pitcher. We do have both, like in the bullpen, that could, do a spot start here and there, hopefully. So in situations like that, but the problem is the quality of the starting pitchers that we are running out there, and are they on a consistent basis going to keep us competitive and keep us in ball games, and not overexpose the bullpen.
Yeah, it's fair. And it was a problem in the offseason. It's a problem now. And John Means coming back can only do so much. Grayson Rodriguez getting more development can only do so much. We're just kind of getting to that point. They need to find another level, and it's just not currently in the system. So hopefully that trade happens. I'm hoping and depending on it, but we'll see. Another negative, before we get to some positives, because there are some positives. The Orioles are a winning baseball team. They're on it's only 18 games, but I think they're on a 91 win pace or something. This team is playing good-ish. But one more negative before we get to the positive is the fielding has been far worse than I was anticipating. Obviously there's the Ryan McKenna blunder, which, that stuff like that happens. That alone shouldn't, paint you as a bad fielding team, but it was just emblematic of the first 2 weeks of the season. The defense just doesn't look great. I think Mateo looks fine at short. I think Rutschman looks fine behind the plate, but kind of everybody else is doing some weird things. Mullins had a bad first series in Boston. Henderson, they're shuffling him around. I don't think he looks totally settled anywhere. I think Frazier looks fine at second base, but it's just in general, the vibes are off for the fielding right now. Eli, you're shaking your head in agreement. I mean, do you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, I will say, I think, I don't know, Gunner's had a couple plays with just a couple wild throws throughout the early part of the year. I don't know. I'm not too worried about him. What you mentioned about, I think Mateo and Frazier are turning into pretty comfortable, a group that's pretty comfortable with each other up the middle. Particularly in the last Kyle Gibson start, we saw those two turn a number of double plays. I think that they're starting to learn how to work together. But yeah, the big thing for me is the outfield. This was something we really expected to be a strength of our team, quite frankly. And the Boston series, it was glaring. A lot of things went wrong, regardless of the Ryan McKenna gaffe. So it's been just kind of, I don't know. I didn't really know what to think about it. I'm not concerned about it in the long term, though, because Cedric Mullins is still Cedric Mullins. I think Hayes is a good defender. Santander is going to be Santander. He'll be what we expect him to be, which isn't that great as a defender, but he's a known quantity, I think. I don't think he's going to get that much better or worse this year. So I expect it to regress to the mean. Sure. And so not concerned in the long run, but it has been a bit of a
Right.
Just a very, very weird thing to start the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Jess, you want to jump in?
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, especially in the Boston series, I mean, maybe you attribute some of it to the dimensions of the ballpark or whatever.
It was cold, it
but
was windy, that
yeah,
kind of
but
stuff.
I mean, yeah, and I guess it was the first season, so maybe some of these guys are thank you. The first series of the season. So maybe, some of the guys aren't getting good reads on bats and stuff like that. But it's even more than just right. Obviously, the mechanic thing is just right symbolic and completely laughable and like just ridiculous, right? But it goes way beyond that, right? I mean, it was about reading the bat off the ball. It was about the routes that the outfielders were taking to the ball. So it's been a variety of things. And then especially also, I mean, we can look at Henderson too, but I mean, this is sort of, I think, what we would expect from him,
Sure.
sort of, and kind of what I was hoping wouldn't happen is what the Orioles are doing, is that he is moving around the infield and playing different positions. He's come and played short when Mateo sat out, and stuff like that. So I would like him to try to, to allow him to get some comfort and some stability at a position. More for his short-term benefit than his long-term benefit. But the Orioles haven't done that. So, yeah. And plus, in addition to him not hitting well, I'm sure that's frustrating for him. So it's both areas of his game that he has to, sort of work on and think about and pay attention to. So,
yeah, it's interesting. It's just like the Orioles have kind of come into the season sort of just like saying the cream will rise to the top with the left side of the infield. And like right now, Mateo, you have to play Mateo every single day because one, he's a good defender like he always is, but he's like the best hitter on the team right now for some reason, which is
he's the best hitter in the world right now. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I think he leads the team in batting average, and Hayes is second, and then Rutschman's third. It's like the world's upside down. It's it's wild. But and then with Urias getting hurt, not really hurt, but like, well, hit in the head, that sucks. But
that would probably hurt.
Yeah, but I think of like pulling a hamstring or something. But when you just get assaulted, it's a little bit of a different situation. But I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't love the idea of like Henderson not having a set position. And I think Ben McDonald said on the broadcast of the day that he thinks Henderson looks more comfortable at shortstop versus third base. But all the scouting reports are always that, he's going to be a Gold Glove type third baseman and an average shortstop. So it's like something there isn't, maybe Ben McDonald's off, maybe the scouts are off. I don't know. I just feel like the Orioles need to give him a set position. And it again goes back to the offseason where instead of making a trade with the surplus of shortstops, you just sat on your hands. And it's like, I don't know that the team is ultimately better because of it. So just sort of my frustrations airing out there. But I would agree, Eli, I think you said that I'm not worried about the defense long term. But yeah, the early returns have been not fantastic. But let's talk about something. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just one note on Gunnar for me is that I think that he did look pretty comfortable at third base last year. And so I do think there's an element of, this could be just, I don't know, settling into game speed a little bit. He's clearly, not to say he's really struggling at the plate because he's close to the major league lead in walks, but he is struggling to put bat on ball, as in the batting average is super low. So I think it might be like something very simply that he's trying to figure some stuff out. He's trying to settle into the game speed. And the sophomore slump, quote unquote, is hitting him a little bit early to start the year. So I'm not ready to quite say, like, I think he looks more comfortable at short, and therefore, that's the thing that he prefers. We should push him that way. I think, like, jury's still out for me on that, but we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking.
Yeah, and I don't really, at this time, I don't really think people should be making that argument with Mateo there at short. I mean, That
Yeah, for sure.
doesn't make
Oh
sense to
yeah.
me.
No,
If Mateo gets traded at the deadline or something and we want to move Henderson to short, fine. But it doesn't make sense for Henderson, in my mind, to be playing short every day at this point.
oh no, yeah, I wouldn't say that
Yeah, for sure.
either. My argument would be like give him a position, and if third's the position, then that's the position. Like I'm fine with him DHing occasionally if that's what you want to do, but
Right.
I just think as a rookie, and look, he's 21 or 22. You know, there's a lot going on there. I would just simplify things and say, look, we know you've got whatever going on at the plate. Eli just kind of talked about where you're basically not swinging the bat, which is a whole critique I have of him. But figure that out and just focus on one position, and we'll figure everything else out. But I don't think that's what the Orioles are going to do, obviously, but just what I would prefer. So anyway, let's talk about a positive for the Orioles that is going better than expected. And it's the offense, and it's pretty much every element of the offense. The Orioles are in the top 5 of MLB entering play on Monday in runs, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, walks, and stolen bases. Which like the number out of all those numbers, the one that is like shocking as an Orioles fan for the last 30 years is on base percentage. They're first in the league in on base percentage. That was a critique of this team for a long time under Buck Showalter and Dan Duquette was they'd hit the ball to the ballpark, but there was not always somebody on base in front of them. They wouldn't take a walk. They didn't get on base. They just hit dingers. And this is like it's like another world that we're living in right now. So I don't know if we want to kind of just talk about individual contributors or what's going on. Jess, I know I was talking to you before a little bit. You had some guys in mind. Is there anybody in particular you would really want to like point out as like really impressive or better than you expected, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say I think there has been a shift sort of in emphasis, and the organization valuing on base percentage more. We have several, I mean, now granted, we have some guys that clearly don't emphasize on base percentage, but we also do have some guys that do. Obviously, Rutschman is probably the biggest example, but also, when he's going well, Henderson, like Eli was talking about with the walks, is theoretically a very disciplined hitter at the plate. So yeah, I mean, now don't get me wrong, we do compensate that a little bit with some free swingers that we have as well, like Mountcastle. But overall, yeah, I mean, I think it's not everybody. I think it makes sense in a lineup to have some free swingers. So I don't think that's necessarily a problem. So no, I mean, do I think, I don't expect the Orioles to lead the league in this at the end of the year, but I do expect the Orioles to sort of be more in the middle of the pack because we do have a more balanced lineup with all specifically I'm talking about with on base percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the middle of the pack with that by the end of the year. And as far as the offense as a whole, I mean, kind of, for a while we've kind of been optimistic. I think we could have a middle of the pack offense to one of the better offenses in the league, somewhere in that range. We definitely have a lot of potential in the lineup. I mean, we have several hitters who are very, very capable of having big years. Obviously, it's going to depend a lot on some of the younger guys. How good is Adley going to be? How good is Henderson going to be? Does Mateo have an offensive breakout year? Which I think is on the table. I mean, relative for him, right? Like, I don't want to overinflate what it's going to be, but I do think he could surprise a lot of people relative to where he was last year. So, is Mountcastle going to return to form, right? Is he going to be the hitter he was, and is capable of being? So, Austin Hayes, another guy, right? Like, is he going to put a full season together offensively at the plate? So, they're just sort of a lot of question marks, I think, with a lot of the guys in the offense. Is Santander going to hit another 30 home runs, right? So, yeah, I think I think it's a lineup when you look at it, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of yeah, uh, yeah. So I think a lot of it depends on sort of if these guys progress how we hope and expect and want them to, or maybe they encounter some struggles and the offense doesn't click to its capability.
I think I'm a little more bullish on the offense than Jesse is. And one of the single biggest things about it is that I'm staring at a random chart online. It's admittedly, I was struggling to get a good chart of pitches per plate appearance. I was trying to find it for the whole team, but was unable to. But of the top 20 hitters in terms of pitches per plate appearance, the Orioles have 4. I'm sorry, top 20 in the American League. So Santander is seeing 4.3 a game, Rutschman seeing 4.3 per plate appearance, Rutschman seeing 4.3, Adam Frazier is seeing 4.3, and Gunnar's seeing about a little under 4.2. So, and we just drew 26 walks against the Oakland Athletics. So I do think there is, there's been all this talk about swing decisions. Everyone says that's what has made Gunnar such an elite prospect. That's what's been this emphasis as a collective across the Orioles organization. And I think that is really, really starting to show here. I think it's even a little bit decisive. It's a big part of what we have seen Jorge Mateo start to excel in this year. Again, TBD whether any form of his current self continues, but really struggled against the breaking ball last year. This year is hitting like over 400 against them, able to lay off the ones off the plate, able to find himself when there is one in the middle of the plate, when there is a mistake pitch being made, he's able to jump on it. So I do think there's a lot of reason to think that the Orioles as a unit are starting to turn themselves into a higher on base team. And I think that can only mean good things. We've seen Mountcastle have some very, very big swings despite his normal free swinging self. His walk rate also has gone up this year, is already at about 9%. So I think there's some underlying trends that do bode well for the Orioles. Granted, this is all inflated by those 26 walks against a high A team in the Oakland Athletics, but we are doing what we are supposed to do against that terrible, terrible pitching staff. So we have handled our business. I think that, we got shut down by Jacob deGrom, but I haven't seen us really totally overmatched in any other game this year. We just handled Dylan Cease pretty well the other day. I think that the Orioles offense as a unit is coming together really well. And I think I would be remiss if I went through this segment and I didn't just say the name Adley Rutschman. The guy looks like just an insanely complete hitter right now. He looks like everything that was promised and that was hoped for, and then even more on top of that.
Yeah, he's it's incredible. I mean, that's I think that that's an important sentiment, because I think a lot of people that are fans of the Orioles are verbalizing that, or are just kind of grappling with that, because we had Matt Wieters, a very similar sort of reputation coming up. He wasn't a number 1 overall pick, but switch hitting catcher, switch hitting Jesus, people threw around, all these ridiculous nicknames or whatever, but they were right in his Hall of Fame bio, the day they picked him out of Georgia Tech. And he was good. Matt Wieters was a very good player. He won Gold Gloves. He went to All-Star games, was on some very good Orioles teams. And if Adley Rutschman, which, he's only in his second year, if he turned into Matt Wieters, that's not a terrible first overall pick. Some first overall picks don't make it, or they burn out really fast. But just the way he impacts everything in such a positive direction, and pitchers are so obviously scared to make a mistake to him. And the Orioles have not had that in the lineup since Machado, probably. I don't think there's been a player since 2018 that the Orioles have had that was getting pitched around the way Adley is in the second week of the season.
Yeah, I think that's completely correct.
And it's just like, it's wild that the Orioles have a player like that. And he plays the catcher position, which, like, again, the catcher position is such a offensively a depressed position that when you get that sort of production out of that position, it frees up the rest of the roster to provide even more of a boost. And that's part of why the Orioles offense is good. Like, their best hitter is the catcher. So now their third baseman or their shortstop or whatever can be not as good, even though they are good right now. And it just makes everything more impactful.
It compensates for a lot, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's the reverse of what the Astros had last year with Maldonado behind the plate.
Yeah, because you'll take a Gold Glove type catcher, and if he hits 150, that might be okay. And I don't know if Rutschman's playing at a Gold Glove level behind the plate, but he's pretty good defensively. And I don't think it's ridiculous to say he's already the best catcher in the sport. And that's huge. Yeah, so I missed a little bit of what you were saying, Eli, because I was dealing with some technical issues on my end. Did we talk about stolen bases at all?
We actually did not. I will say I also found a good chart for the team. What I was talking mostly was kind of swing decisions and plate discipline. The Orioles are seeing the most pitches per plate appearance of any team in Major League Baseball right now. So
yeah,
that was what I was saying is a seriously comforting trend to me, because, like, as we had talked about, this team has notoriously been free swinging over the last decade plus.
Yeah.
And that's been incredibly encouraging to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I have like a whole pet theory that I think Gunnar Henderson needs to swing the bat more often and earlier in the count, although I think he swings at first pitch is a healthy amount, but then it's just like he just gets 2 strikes on him, and then you're just in a position where you're going to get breaking balls, and that's just harder to hit. But he seemed a little more aggressive this weekend in Chicago. His batting line is like kind of absurd what it is. It's
hilarious.
He's batting under 200, but he's got a 373 on base. Like, that's wild. But before we get into rookies, just like stolen bases real quick, they're second in the league in that, behind, I think Cleveland has 1 more than the Orioles, but Cleveland gets thrown out a little bit more often than the Orioles do. It's just like such a weapon to have speedy guys and guys that are willing to steal bases. And again, that's where Mateo really shines, and Mullins knows how to steal a base. And Henderson, I don't think is really stealing too many bases, but he's deceptively fast. Mountcastle's deceptively fast. The Orioles they're athletic again for the first time in a long time. And speed's not always athletic, but in this case it is. And it's just, again, really refreshing. Pretty much every time the Orioles are hitting, like, I've got to watch the TV, which has not always been the case for the last 6 years. So, yeah, just really exciting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and Mullins and Mateo both, led the league in stolen bases last year, so it makes sense that we would be sending them again, and probably more frequently with the bigger bags out there. So yeah.
And I mean, they've got 24 stolen bases. 10 of them came in that first weekend in Boston, so like it's a little bit of an inflated number, but all signs point to the Orioles competing for most stolen bases in the league by the end of the year. So that's
Definitely.
really exciting.
Definitely.
Yeah, that Boston series was a catching catastrophe for Boston.
Well, some of those bases I think were stolen on the pitcher too. Like, they were just already there, and it's like, well, what's the point?
Right.
Slow to the plate.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely, I mean, even been a willingness to take third as well, which is been even more interesting to me. It's not just we're getting off on somebody for one pitch. It is, we are like constantly a threat at all times, regardless of where they are on the bases. It's been like exciting and fascinating. This is what Major League Baseball wanted when they implemented all these rules, and the Orioles are taking full advantage of it. It is making the game more exciting.
I was going to say, I also think that makes a really big difference, the rule changes regarding how many times a pitcher can, because if the runner can get that much more of a lead off the bag with this much more confidence, that they are not going to throw the ball over there. When you had to worry every pitch that it was a a 30% chance that they would throw the ball over, that makes a big difference in your lead or whatever. But if with 90% certainty that they're going to go home on that pitch, you're going to take those extra 3 or 4 inches off the bag and hope for the best. And of course, with the Orioles, it's normally worked out. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. On the rule changes, one thing I feel like is not impacting the Orioles, and they're like in a silo, is like speed of game. I feel like the Orioles games are not any faster.
Which is what you were excited about, Tyler, because you need to get the bet.
I do.
But yeah, so.
Well, that's because of, like, in all seriousness, the combination of everything we've talked about so far, right? Our pitching has been bad.
Right.
Our defense has been bad.
Yep.
The Orioles offense has been incredible, and seeing as many pitches per game as literally any offense in the bigs.
Right.
So those things are coming together, and every game has been like 8-6, 9-5.
Yeah. That's true. I need the Orioles. Look, I love it on it for a day game, but when the game starts at like 7 or later, you need to swing the bat because I have to work the next day. I think they should understand that personally. The only other thing we had on the offense, and I don't think we talked about, was Santander really struggling. He had a decent series in Chicago, but
hit his first home run.
Yeah, had his first home run. I think he had a multi-hit game. The guy is just like striking out like crazy, and he's getting fastballs up in the zone, and he just can't handle them right now. But I don't know that I'd say I'm worried about him. But Jess, do you have any thoughts on Santander so far?
No, not a whole lot. I mean, I wonder if part of it may have been the preparation from the World Baseball Classic. I mean, he was doing great with Team Venezuela, and I'm not at all using this to justify that we should not have the World Baseball Classic, but
just Orioles should play in it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that either. But I mean, well, we look at Kramer, we look at Santander, is there a link? I mean, I'm sure, Mullins, and, he's been doing well, but in any case, so yeah, no, I mean, there was a non-standard preparation in spring training for him. So I'm willing to wait a little while and see if he turns it around. I'm not long-term, I'm not overly worried about him. He's put the past 2 or 3 seasons, he's had pretty consistent seasons. So at least offensively. So yeah, I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, fair enough. He's just striking out a lot. When he hits the ball, he still hits it hard. He's just got to hit the ball. Easier said than done. I know we got to talk about it, but it's been a couple weeks, so no freakouts necessary most of the time at this point. Maybe with we'll talk about it, but maybe with Irvin as the exception. I don't know. So yeah, fair enough.
For me, I like seeing Santander do so well in the World Baseball Classic. The only thing that comes to my mind, clearly he was seeing the ball well there. I don't think that there is an argument to be made that the competition there was lesser than it is in the major leagues. Of course, that's true. But I think that seeing him see the ball so well there and then struggling right now, my mind immediately, and particularly because it is Santander, goes to, is there some nagging injury right now? Something that is slowing him down in some way, shape, or form. We have seen him slump in the past, and it's always been tied to something like that. We've seen him miss a ton of time, of course. And so him and Hayes are the two that anytime they're slumping, I'm like, oh God, what's hurt right now?
Right.
So I think there's the chance for that, but we sent Kyle Stowers to AAA for whatever reason. So Santander is in the lineup every day and probably will continue to be. I don't think Terran Vavra is a right fielder. He's been out there some, but I think Santander is in it for the long haul. So if there is something nagging, then I don't expect it to get much better in the next couple of weeks.
No, and I mean, that's us totally speculating, of course, but he has done that before, and if that is the case, you would wish he would just take the IL stint because it's not like he's performing well. So what's the point of any of that? So we'll see. I was looking at his sprint speed. I was trying to find his sprint speed, but I don't even know if he has that really on Savant this year because he probably hasn't really sprinted that many times because he's never hitting the ball. But he's in the 15th percentile on that. But I couldn't find an actual speed. That is lower than his 22 percentile, but I don't know what that translates to in feet per second. But yeah.
Actually, to what you're saying, Eli, I said he's been pretty good the last couple of years, but now that you said that, I was forgetting the year he basically was playing injured most of the year, and his power, definitely declined and dipped, and he did struggle that year. So yeah.
Yeah, he's okay. I got it. He's
21.
25.1 feet per second sprint speed this year, which is 1.3 feet per second slower than last year. So that sounds concerning. But he was never exactly fleet of foot, so I'm not gonna say that's too much overwhelming evidence there. But
right.
Anyway, let's talk about the rookies. We've touched on both of them a little bit here and there, but Gunnar Henderson and Grayson Rodriguez, two big prospects for the Orioles entering the season. Gunnar obviously played a little bit last year. Grayson shockingly didn't make the opening day roster, but now he was up for home opening day anyway, which apparently the Orioles can still get the draft pick compensation for him because it's apparently the rule isn't like opening day. It's like enough time to get a full year of experience or whatever. So yeah, that is still on the table.
I've actually got something else interesting. Because Grayson was optioned and then recalled before the initial 20-day waiting period, all of the time that he was down actually counts as MLB service time as well.
Okay.
So, this is a similar thing with Cole Irvin right now. Unless the Orioles have some injury, he's got to stay down there for 15 days, or else all of this counts as service time. So, or actually, there might be a harder rule on that. Yeah, so you can't send somebody down and then bring them up unless there is an injury.
Right.
But I guess because it was the opening day option, then it's a little bit different. But case in point, Grayson will get the full year of service time, not even just the 10 days or whatever that he was down in the minors.
Okay.
Deducted from that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good to know. So yeah, just kind of a weird thing where the Orioles sent him down for a couple of days and the Bradish injury kind of necessitated a move and he was the move. But as far as results, let's talk about Gunnar first. We've touched on it quite a bit. His batting line as of Monday the 17th is 178 batting average, 373 on base, and then a 289 slugging. He's got 1 homer, 2 RBI, 13 walks, and 21 strikeouts. I think in general he looks comfortable at the plate. And I talked about this just a few minutes ago. He's sort of just being overly cautious and aware of the strike zone, which normally you would think is a good thing for a rookie because they tend to be a little bit more free swinging, sort of ready to take the hacks and be aggressive out there. And he's kind of the opposite. So my only critique of him is to swing earlier in the count, try to be a little more aggressive, and get more comfortable with the game, and then maybe back his way into those walks a little bit more often. But
get a little more aggressive, but not too much aggressive. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, just put yourself in a position to get fastballs more often. If you boil it down, is because that's what you can hit. It's just naturally, typically easier to hit those fastballs than the off-speed stuff, especially when you're behind in the count. So yeah, I think my professional recommendation to Gunnar Henderson is be more aggressive, Gunnar. See the ball, be the ball, Gunnar. I don't know. How does that sound, Jess? What do you think about Gunnar so far?
Yeah, I mean, of course I'm not worried about him long term, not even really that worried about him that much short term. I feel like give it a month, give it 2 months, and he's gonna reverse a lot of these numbers. So yeah, I'm not overly panicked about him. I think kind of like we were talking about defensively, he's getting jerked around the infield. And I think that makes it right, kind of like you were saying earlier about keeping it simple. I just would like the Orioles to do that for him, and he's coming into he's playing for this exciting team. He had a stellar month when he came up at the end of last season. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of uncertainty, discomfort about where you're playing and all that kind of thing. So I think there are just a lot of factors that right now are not really working in his favor. But yeah, I think just give it a month or two and I think he'll be fine.
Fair enough. Eli, what's your rundown on Gunnar?
I actually kind of disagree with you.
On
and
me?
what
With
I'm
me?
going to point to
There we
is
go.
that Miguel Vargas of the Dodgers, right? He was injured during spring training, and so they kept sending him to the plate knowing that he could not swing the bat.
I
And
remember this. Okay.
yeah, and he ended up getting walked like 8 times in spring training, which is pretty hilarious. Pitchers just managed to psych themselves out knowing that he wasn't going to swing. But I think what that enabled him to do was just see a bunch of pitches. So we are here early in the season, and for me, like if I'm setting myself up for success throughout the course of the year, I want to maximize the number of pitches I'm seeing in every plate appearance. And as you do that, as you get better reads on each pitch coming out of the hand, I think that is when you can start to expand yourself and take a chance earlier in the count. And I think that's the way that the Orioles would prefer Gunnar to go, if he's going to bias himself one way or another in terms of aggression or patience, particularly early in the year. I think I have no problem whatsoever with seeing pitches, potentially getting himself deep into these counts, into unfavorable situations. That's kind of the nature of the beast if you are committing to sort of finding your pitch, zeroing in on what is truly yours. So I think for now, early in the season, I've got no problem. He clearly, the 373 OBP is not a mistake. I think that those 13 walks are like 5th in the major leagues right now. The approach is a concrete one. And is this is 178, 373, 289 the best version of Gunnar Henderson? Of course it's not, but I do think that if he was going to be suffering in any way, this is the way that I would like to see him suffering early on in the season. I think it is like laying building blocks for him to have like a more sustained period of success later in the year.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that I understand that. And I'm not concerned about Gunnar long term. And I do agree that I think he looks plenty comfortable at the plate. He's not chasing pitches out of the zone. He's got total control of the strike zone, and whiffing is just part of his game. I mean, he's going to strike out. I mean, look at his numbers in the minors. He had the power and he had the on base, but he struck out a bunch. And that's just, he's a not necessarily a 3 true outcomes type of player, but close to it. But yeah, he's just, and naturally that's going to get you into a lot of 2-strike counts. And right now he's just not getting hits when he's got 2 strikes. He literally does not have a hit this year when he's got 2 strikes on him. That'll change. That will change. He's got a 194 on base when he's got 2 strikes. He's 0 for 25 with 2 strikes.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. And that's because he doesn't have a hit on anything but a fastball this year. He's batting 348 against fastballs and 0 for against everything else. And that's why he's not getting hits with 2 strikes. So it's, he'll figure it out. He's young. But I hear what you're saying, Eli, and I don't think it's the worst thing because he's still like, even batting 178 because he's getting on base so frequently, he's still like a net positive probably on offense or close to it. So once he starts actually hitting the ball, he's going to just explode. So yeah, not worried there. Let's talk Grayson real quick. So Grayson's made 3 starts so far. In total, he's thrown 14 1/3 innings. His ERA is just a little under 7, and his WHIP is 1.60. Opposing hitters are hitting 276 against him. He's walked 7 and struck out 19. Eli, the resident pitching guru, not that you've seen every single pitch Grayson's thrown, maybe you have. But what are your early thoughts on Grayson?
The early thoughts on Grayson, I think in the first start, he was totally incapable of making his out pitches convincing, and he wasn't getting them close enough to the zone, and he overcorrected in the second start, and he found himself way in the middle of the zone. I think the first 5 hits he gave up in the second start were all on 1-2 or 0-2 counts. And then in this most recent start, he got touched up in the first inning and then just absolutely locked it down. So I think that it's the natural growing pains of figuring out how to attack a major league hitter, right? When you're in AAA and you throw something that starts, you throw a slider that starts 2 inches off the black and ends up in the dirt in the left-handed batter's box, that can still get a swing. And it, just won't be as effective in the major leagues. Major league hitters are good. This is why they get paid millions of dollars. And he just has to kind of fine-tune the approach, has to figure out what he does that plays at this level and keep working with it. So I think there have been some super, super encouraging trends. He punched out, 8 in his last start. He's got 19 Ks in 14 innings, so the stuff is obviously playing up. His changeup in particular against the White Sox, once he found that, was just gross. I mean, just the separation off the fastball. He backdoored it 1 or 2 times against a righty to get a strikeout. It looks like a legitimate major league weapon. The changeup and the slider have both gotten 70 grade reviews from scouts his entire time through the minors. So I think there's plenty of stuff to like. I think there are, growing pains for anybody coming up into the major leagues. He's a kid and he's never seen a hitter this good for any one of 1 through 9, in his entire life. So yeah, I'm totally fine to be patient. And even with all that, he's still I don't know, he's one of the best 5 options in the Orioles organization right now, because, there hasn't been really any consistent performance anywhere in the rotation outside of Kyle Gibson. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Jesse, what do you think? Would you move Grayson Rodriguez to the bullpen because he's so bad?
That's hilarious. Yeah, so no, I think I agree. Eli commented on the rough first innings that, I mean, these numbers I think would look very different if you took an inning out of each start. And what I'm focusing on also is the innings of domination, right? Which he has demonstrated that, like Eli was saying, he can mow hitters down. And so I'm definitely I think with a rookie pitcher, the main priority is you want to see flashes of greatness. That's why we were encouraged by Bradish, for instance, last year, right? An inconsistent pitcher, struggled a lot, but had 2 fantastic starts against the Cardinals, against the Astros. So we've already seen, I mean, like we're saying, we're seeing the flashes of greatness from Grayson Rodriguez. It's been a couple hiccup innings. I think not a big deal at all. I think also, like Eli pointed out, the strikeout numbers, 19 and 14 innings. I mean, that's stellar for a starting pitcher. I mean, stellar. Most starting pitchers don't get 1 strikeout per inning on average. I don't think that's true. Yeah, normally around that, but I think most, if you added up all of it, I think the average would be less than 1 per inning. But
yeah, for starting pitchers, the average is definitely less.
In the bullpen, it's more. But so in any case, so no, I mean, I'm definitely encouraged. I'm excited. Like we expect him to struggle a bit, throughout the course of this year, but I'm really not worried at all. So
yeah, I mean, for me, he's healthy. The velocity looks good every time. That's an important marker, which it is. And he maintains it through he's only really going 5 innings right now. And that's just because he's throwing too many pitches per inning, but that's part of it. The slider right now is kind of the problem, is a problem pitch for him. He's not really locating it. He leaves it in the middle of the zone a little too often. he'll figure it out. He's got 5 pitches, which, I mean, that's kind of crazy itself. So he'll figure it out. He's always going to be fastball first, and as long as that's working, he can have that changeup play off of it. And yeah, I think every start he has, I'm more encouraged than the last. The White Sox one this past weekend was really impressive, just because it's easy enough to get down on yourself after one bad inning and kind of just be like, all right, well, I'm going to go 3 innings probably and get out of here, and it's going to be a rough day. But to go 5, to buy the bullpen a couple extra innings is huge. So yeah,
Right.
I'm encouraged by it.
It'd definitely be more alarming if he was going 2 or 3 innings, or I mean, and granted, let me just say, even if he was going 2 or 3 innings, or even getting pulled in the first, I overall I probably would not be concerned, right? So don't
This early,
even
yeah.
yeah, even in that worst case scenario, right? If it was only 3 starts in, I wouldn't be worried, but we're not even close to that. It's way better than that. And yeah, I mean the stat line does not look good, but other than the strikeouts per innings, the stat line doesn't look good. But yeah,
Yeah,
no need to worry.
absolutely. Like,
And I think sorry, but the other thing you were saying, just playing off the fastball, I think it was Buck who used to say that like the best pitch in baseball is a well located fastball. So
yeah,
you can definitely that's fine for that to be your best pitch. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, absolutely. And like Eli said, I mean, he's one of the 5 best pitchers in the Orioles organization, so he should stick around as long as they feel he's going to stay healthy. And yeah, I get excited every time he comes around to pitch, so looking forward to it. All right, let's talk kind of a surprise player in a positive way here. Danny Coulomb. This is a guy that none of us knew existed probably 3 weeks ago. I mean, maybe you did. Maybe you have an encyclopedia knowledge of baseball players. I didn't know about Danny Coulomb.
I think we all put him on our opening day rosters, Tyler.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, tomorrow they're going to trade with the Twins for this 33-year-old lefty. Mark it down. But yeah, they got Danny Coulomb from the Twins on March 27th for cash. Clearly felt they needed a lefty. Nick Vespi was demoted. Keegan Aiken's more of a multi-inning guy. Coulomb's been around the league. He's bounced. He pitched with the A's for a little while. Spent the last couple of years with the Twins, sort of bouncing between AAA and the bigs for them. And so far through 6 1/3, third innings, he's been incredible. He's got 10 strikeouts. He's allowed just 1 earned run, no walks, no homers, and a whip of 0.450. I don't know, Jesse, I know you haven't seen too much of him just with your schedule, but Eli, have you checked out Danny Coulomb at all? And do you have any thoughts on what he's doing and how he's doing it?
Yeah, the Orioles have tweaked his pitch mix pretty significantly. And the biggest thing is that the slider is his primary pitch now, and he uses it over 50% of the time. That has just straight up never been the case. So I will say they're actually crediting him with the slider and a sweeper. So his primary slider is being used over 50% of the time, and he's incorporating the sweeper almost 20% of the time. His four-seam fastball usage is down to, looks like about 16% from over 30 last year and from a career high of about 45. So the Orioles are tweaking his pitch usage to just drop and drop and drop the number of straight things that he is throwing. And, it makes the average fastball of 91.3 miles an hour play up a little bit. His slider does get pretty good movement on it. And it just works. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else that can really be said about it. But yeah, I don't know. His sweeper's got an extra almost 5 inches of vertical movement relative to most, relative to average of comparable speeds. So you really just want to stay off of the fastball and stick with the things that work. We're starting to see some folks around the game I don't know, Matt Whistler and Matt Festa and some of these slider primary relief arms. And that's what Coulomb's turning into. The Orioles clearly identified this and said we can work with it, and they're making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it kind of brings. I don't know if the profile is identical, but it makes me think of Richard Blyer a little bit. Lefty, didn't throw real hard, kind of had some funk, and sort of Blyer's thing was he relied on getting soft contact. Coulomb gets soft contact, and he also strikes out a bunch of guys.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. But like, and typically with these types of guys, I worry that it's like smoke and mirrors, especially with relief pitchers. It's a small sample size, but like a lot of the peripheral stats indicate that this is like for real. Obviously the velocity for the fastball doesn't really come into the equation. But I mean, getting whiffs and getting really weak contact typically is proof that you're good, not that you're lucky. So I don't know, Eli, do you buy this as like he can do this for not he's not gonna not walk anybody and not give up home runs, but like could he be like a sub 3 ERA like bullpen guy for the whole season, do you think?
I think it's possible. I don't expect it, but I think it's possible. I think that yeah, I think there's a chance that he further ruins any prospects that Nick Vespi had. Um,
Yeah.
and Vespi's just going to keep putting up zeros in AAA for the rest of his life.
Yeah, that is tough for Nick Vespi. Um, but
Yeah.
he's there if we need him, and I'm sure he'll get some time in the big leagues at some point. But yeah, that is a bummer. You just do everything right, and it's still just not good enough.
I know.
What are you gonna do? But yeah, Danny Coulomb. Who would have thought? Exciting stuff. All right, let's talk about a negative surprise. We talked about it a bit at the beginning, but Cole Irvin demoted to AAA Norfolk following 3 bad starts with the Orioles. In those 3 starts, he tossed 2.2 total innings, has an ERA over 10, a WHIP of nearly 2, striking out more than a batter an inning, but he's also had some walk issues, which was not a thing we expected from him. 8 walks in 12 2/3 of innings. Jesse, what were your thoughts on Irvin getting demoted? I mean, first, I guess, it's easy enough to say we were surprised by the move, but do you think it was deserved for him to go to AAA Norfolk at this stage of the season?
Basically, no, I don't. I mean, yeah, look, I understand that the numbers are atrocious. I'm aware and I'm privy to that. At the same time, it's 3 starts. And I mean, especially with the pitchers, with all the adjustments, the mechanics that they are trying to work and sort through at the beginning of the year. I mean, I don't know. I generally feel like most players, you know, should get a little bit of grace, I guess, at the beginning of the year. So, um, generally, I don't think 3 starts is really, much to judge a pitcher on. Obviously, the Orioles do have a limit, 5 or 6 starts, even if you think this isn't really representative of who they are, they are a better pitcher than this in reality, etc. Of course, you do have a cutoff point where okay, yeah, we know you can do better. We know you're capable of better, but we can't keep throwing you out there with you pitching this poorly. So I understand that there's a cutoff point, that the Orioles have to look at the situation and be like, look, you know, we think you've been, negatively impacted by some bad luck. We think this, we think that, but at the end of the day, it's not working and we need you to go down and make some adjustments. I get that, but I don't get how that cutoff point is after 3 starts. I mean, we're not even, we're just midway through April at this point, and
Sure.
so it's a little surprising to me, especially about a guy the Orioles went out and traded for, right? And the Orioles theoretically, granted, I mean, you could say, well, the Orioles didn't give up a lot to get him, and how big are they actually on Cole Irvin, et cetera. I mean, those kind of questions are there, but this is a guy we went and traded for. And yeah, I mean, I definitely, he's in a new team, it's a new situation. He's in the AL East. Granted, not necessarily his starts were against AL East teams, but nonetheless, I just think it's a rough situation for him. I think it makes it more. I think it makes it more difficult for him now moving forward because he's always, even if he, I'm sure he's always sort of had this lingering in the back of his mind. But now he's probably got to worry and put even more pressure on himself to perform so that he doesn't get demoted again in the future. And, so, I just think that there's, I mean, I think it's unfortunate, and I would have liked to have seen him get a little bit of a longer leash than he's gotten. So,
I mean, what I would say about him being, the mental aspect of it is that these guys are always under immense pressure to perform. You know what I mean? Like, until you get that big deal, that Chris Davis deal, where you can, hey, I got the money and I'm gonna suck for 3 years in a row, and it doesn't really matter. Yeah, they always have to perform, because you see guys will have good pre-arb years and then something falls apart, and then they don't ever get that big deal. But
or if you're like an Adley or a Gunnar prospect,
well, yeah,
or
but
a Wander Franco or something, yeah,
sure, but they still got to perform till they get to free agency. Cody Bellinger. I mean,
right.
Obviously he had a good arbitration. He just got, like, I think $20 million from the Cubs, but like, he hasn't gotten the big deal yet, and he's a former MVP. Because he kind of fell apart with the Dodgers at the end. But
well, I just mentioned them in terms of demotion.
Sure.
That's all I was thinking about. Yeah. But right, there's pressure to perform for salaries too. Yeah.
But what I'll say about Irvin, though, is that the fact that he could be optioned is part of probably why the Orioles went and got him. There's not, the physical skills aren't off the charts for Irvin, but he was a guy you thought would give him length and not walk people, and he's done neither of those things so far. So, what I wanted to bring up was the Baltimore Sun wrote an article on it over the weekend, and the headline was Cole Irvin's surprise demotion shows Orioles are operating in a post-rebuild world. And I think it's an interesting headline because I don't really agree with it. I mean, I think they are post-rebuild, but I think even in the rebuild, if they had a guy that had an 11 ERA and 3 starts, I think he would have been demoted. I don't know, Eli. What are your thoughts on the whole Cole Irvin situation?
I mean, maybe it's a little different. Sorry to cut you off, Eli, but maybe it's a little different situation. Yeah. But I mean, how long did we stick around with Chris Tillman while he was like, pitching horrendously for the Orioles, and we kept throwing him out there start after start after start after start,
Well, he also had years and years of experience
right.
as our best pitcher.
And that's why I said it's a different situation.
And that was the Buck
different situation
too.
But yeah. Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I think that like the big thing with Cole Irvin, right? You go ahead and I'm looking at just kind of batted ball profiles against him, like compared to last year where he really did have, by all intents and purposes, 2/3 of a phenomenal season and 1/3 of a pretty bad season. Like his solid contact rate is down this year. His barrel percentage is down this year. So like, it's not about insanely loud contact being made against him. What it's about is last year he had a 4.9% walk percentage. This year he has a 12.7% walk percentage. And so he's just walking guys out the wazoo. And as a finesse control pitcher, you can't do that. It's just like, you do not have the ability to give free passes, because what you do is you induce soft contact. That is your specialty. And so you need to be forcing guys into that contact and into the positions where you're going to take advantage of the fact that the best hitters in the game get out 7 times out of 10 when they make contact. So like, that's really his problem. And the fact that it's not, I mean, obviously he was giving up some hard contact too, don't get me wrong. Average exit velocity, he's in the 24th percentile. But like, the main problem is not that everybody is teeing off on him. The main problem here is like something that he can control in this walk percentage. And it is something that is fundamentally wrong with him. And after his second start, he did go ahead and talk about a flaw that he has seen in his own mechanics, and talk about, like things that he is identifying in himself that he can feel that he needs to improve on. So it does seem like this is not the situation of necessarily something that you can leave him out there and just kind of let him work through. Like, it does seem like this needs a little bit of dedicated time. And it was the confluence of that with, like this Bradish injury leading to Grayson Rodriguez coming up, and the rotation was having some adjustments coming as it was. So I think this works out really well because Bradish is coming back. You have 5 men right there. And I think this was a demotion almost of convenience for the Orioles because they're in a situation where they can send him down, almost remove the pressure from him, right? To me, there is no expectation that Cole Irvin stays in AAA all year. That the potential that happens is zero, right? So you tell him, look, you're a major league pitcher. We know you're a major league pitcher. You've done it for 60 starts over the last 2 years. You've had a 4-something ERA. You're a major league pitcher. So this demotion is not indicative of our long-term prospects for you. What this is you're walking guys like no other. We're not quite sure why it's happening. Just take a beat, go make a start or 2 down there. Grayson and Kyle Bradish, will fill in that rotation, and we will be just fine up here while you get it right. So to me, it's I don't think this is a panic situation. And particularly because, again, his hard hit percentage is at the 48th percentile, right down the middle of league average. So I think that this is a situation where he's not necessarily there is something inherently worse about his pitches this year. I don't think it's anything like that. I think he just is unable to control. There is a fundamental mechanical problem. And if he takes some time to get that rectified, I think we can still see, the version of himself that we traded for.
Yeah, I think that's all really good points. I think, the demotion is indicative of the fact that the Orioles do think Irvin is important to the plan for this year too.
Right.
And they have the luxury of having better arms this year than they have had in recent years, and they can say, yeah, Cole, go down. We're recording on the 17th. He's starting on the 18th. People get hurt. He could be up in his next turn in the rotation if he fixes things. Other numbers on him I wanted to point out. His batting average on balls in play was almost 400, 385, which is crazy elevated. That's some bad luck. His fielding independent pitching is 546. So again, not good, but it's half of what his ERA is. And again, he pitched in the first 2 weeks of the season where the Orioles defense is having issues for some reason. So that probably didn't help him either. And then, he's walking too many guys. So it's just a combination of things. He'll be back, but I get it. And I'm cool with it. I've been definitely not huge on the trade for Irvin in general, but I was shocked that he was demoted so early, and he'll be back. So we'll see.
So Tyler, I'm just curious, in what you said there, it wasn't clear to me. I didn't understand. So the part about how the demotion is indicative that the Orioles have them in their long-term plans for the season. I don't understand that.
For Irvin. I think
right.
that
right.
He's being demoted because they know he can go down. I mean, look, if they're not going to keep him up if he just kept sucking. I'm not saying if they didn't care about him,
exactly.
he can just keep playing.
Exactly.
But I think doing it after 3 starts is saying, hey, we see this thing that is going on. And we do want to win baseball games. So you can't figure that out in Baltimore. You need to go to Norfolk and figure it out there in lower pressure things where maybe it's on. I didn't even read. I know Eli said he had said something about it. I didn't read that. So I don't know what the exact issue was with the mechanics. I don't know if it's happening on a specific pitch, if it's just from the stretch or something he could go down to Norfolk and he can just throw a bunch of sliders or whatever the issue is, or he can just pitch out of the stretch, or, he could do that in Baltimore too. But you know what I mean? It's taking the pressure off immediately to go down and figure it out versus, stay in Baltimore and work on it. So to me, and there might be some elements there that they just kind of have some doubts in his ability to do those things on the fly. I mean, I think if these last 2 years he had in Oakland were actually in Baltimore, you might say, hey, you fixed this before. Let's just stay in the bigs and work on it. There's not that track record there. So maybe they just feel better as well. Say, hey, go to Norfolk and work on it. I'm not exactly sure. But I think the fact they pulled the plug so early kind of tells me that they have something identified and they want him to go focus on it, versus just kind of like plowing away in the majors.
Yeah. He didn't say too much specifically, but he said they're tweaking something with his back foot, that, you know, his drive leg,
Okay.
and how he like gets moving toward the plate. And I will say, you know, we have this Baltimore Banner article also mentions it. You know, we have seen his fastball actually tick up to 95, 96 miles an hour at times this year.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see it being a situation where the Orioles said, look, we think we can get a little bit more out of your arm. We think if you can start to play up in the 93 mile an hour range rather than the 91, that, you know, we can do XYZ with you. And I don't know, that effort to getting that little extra bit of drive off his back leg, something like that, has led to him being a little bit more wild. I think there are, you know, it could be whatever, but yeah, it does seem like they have cued in on something and they have been trying to make adjustments. And, you know, this is the result. Sometimes adjustments don't always work.
Sure. And I think it goes back to what we talked about, where the fact that he had an option remaining was a selling point for getting him. That gives you a safety net to say, all right, we can tweak things for a year, and if it's really not going well, he can go down to Norfolk and it's not a big deal. So yeah, I think he's going to be back at some point, whether by injury or, you know, Kramer's really struggled, something like that. But Irvin will be back at some point, and I think he's going to be an important, if not top performer for this pitching staff. So we'll see.
You did say you were really surprised, though, Tyler, when you saw the move.
I was surprised that he got demoted so early. I mean, look, I've talked before. I didn't love the skill set coming in, but to Eli's point, if he could be throwing 95, 96, that kind of changes things. Not every pitch, obviously, is a starter for him, but yeah, I was surprised it happened after 3 starts. I thought they'd give him a little bit longer leeway.
Right.
But I thought it was deserved based on the numbers, you know. But anyway. Let's move on to our final topic, which is the Orioles and their new celebrations. Final topic of the episode. Last season, you know, the Orioles had Rougned Odor. He kind of brought, sounds like, the home run chain and the binoculars when they got on base, and he was kind of the heartbeat of the entire roster. He's gone now, but the Orioles have continued with their celebrations, and I don't know if they've turned it up a notch, but they've got props once again, and they're all water themed. This apparently came together in spring training at some point, but essentially how it goes is if they hit a single, the person that's on base mimes turning a faucet on towards the dugout. The dugout, I think, sprinklers some water out of their mouths towards the person on base. For an extra base hit, the runner on base does a sprinkler dance move towards the dugout. And then on a home run, the home run hitter, when they get back to the dugout, gets to take a slug of the Homer hose. And Kyle Gibson was sure to confirm that it is not a dong bong; it is a Homer hose. Thoughts, guys, on the celebration? It's gotten some hate. I think the dong bong Homer hose has gotten some hate.
I gotta say,
here we go.
I do have big thoughts on this.
Of course, of course you do.
Yeah, what's the surprise?
I'm not surprised
that I have big thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's utter and sheer disappointment that you have big thoughts on it.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not excited about it. I gotta say, I liked last year. I liked the home run chain. I thought that was fun. I thought that was cool. So I mean, and I gotta say, first of all, you know, I like water. Water is life. You know, I get all that, right?
We're all water fans here.
At the same time, like, and I kind of like the faucet, but other than that,
the faucet is the worst of the 3.
No, I think that's the best of the 3 because,
oh my God.
Okay, first of all, let's just say, I mean, the sprinkler is just like, I don't know, one of the worst dances I think there is. Like,
that's what's so great about it, though.
And no, that does not make it great.
And everybody leans over the bench and just goes, no. And just blows water at them. It's
I mean they can't
it's so
see
simple.
what you're doing, but
yeah, no, they can't. And then that's why I had to say it out loud.
and then the other thing is, like, I don't know, the hose is just very much feels like frat boy type stuff, and so I'm definitely yeah, I wish we had the chain. Let me just say that.
Could they edit it in some way that you would feel better about? Could they actually have a hose in the dugout where they turn it on and they get a real? Is it the bong part of it that like it does feel frat boyish? I get that, but
yeah, right. Because my association with seeing it is
the funnel.
alcohol.
The funnel, yeah,
exactly. So, and that and I'm not even saying it from the perspective of like, what about the kids? I'm not saying that. It's just a thing about like, that's not interesting to me really, or fun, or Yeah.
Here's what we need to be upfront. You and I, Jesse, are both in our 30s now.
Yeah.
Eli's still in his 20s. Eli's closer to the age of some of these guys.
I'm 28. I'm 2 years younger than you guys.
You're a child.
Let me just say that's not even it either, Tyler. Like even in my I mean, what I'm saying is not a reflection of my interest or like or dislike of partying or drinking or anything like that.
I'm not even saying that though. I'm not, because Kyle Gibson is older than both of us.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
We just might. I don't know. We just might be a little detached from what they think is cool. You know what I mean? We're a little older. Maybe it just doesn't fit. We understand a chain. You wear a chain every day, Jesse. I've seen it. You're a big chain guy.
Right, of course. I don't think that's it, but I don't know. Like I do feel very like a 25-year-old does not they feel very much in my age range, so
okay. Anyway, so the big thing here, right? I think for good celebrations, I think a very important part of it is there needs to be a like capturable moment in one photo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with all of these, I mean, the faucet is fine, but like particularly with the sprinkler, I mean, like the hand behind head and arm out for like actually doing the dance move is a capturable moment.
Mm-hmm.
Having 4 people lined up on the top step of the dugout with water shooting out of their mouths, a little fountain style, that's a capturable moment. And then, like having somebody standing up on the top step, holding this big thing up while the person who just hit the home run, has their arms out wide and they're like drinking water from it. I think it's like it captures a cool moment. It highlights the person who did the thing. It's just like, I don't know, whoever comes up with a theme for their celebrations, so there was clearly some thought put into all of this. I think it's like, I don't know, I think you're overthinking it, quite frankly, Jess. It's like, it looks cool, it's fun, but you get to drink from the Homer hose, you get to drink.
Right? I just want to say that, you were critical of me for having big thoughts on it, but you just laid out big thoughts on it. So I will say that the capturable moment is a good point, and I will take that into consideration, but that does not make up for anything else I just said. And also, as far as the like, the water fountain thing, the players do, I don't know. It to me, like, and I understand, like, maybe from a hygiene perspective or whatever, there's some critiques of baseball players given tobacco, given, spitting out seeds all the time. And when I played baseball, I chewed seeds all the time. But I don't like the idea, like, just visually look like seeing the water that the players are spitting out of their mouths. I'm not even that big on that either. So it's it's all these points I'm making about, just coalescing together the frat boy stuff, the not interesting and not fun dancing.
All right. So Jess, here's
so yeah, I'm just
no. So I need you to
I do appreciate the thought, I guess, and the coordination on the different things, but the execution was just poor. Okay, sorry.
So I need you to go ahead and figure out what a good celebration would be for you.
Okay. Well, I said the chain. I mean, the Orioles.
But the chain's not even really a celebration.
It's not a celebration.
Right?
It's just
something on.
Yeah.
Right. It's a ceremonial like artifact.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of like
it is a celebration too, but
yeah. I mean, I kind of like. When the
in that
players would
sense,
hit a double and mix it up, or I don't even mind the binoculars.
Remember the lawnmower from the Jonathan VR days? That was a thing.
Oh
remember?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know, but then I'll also say like
I like some celebrations. What are you saying? I don't like any celebrations.
No, but I don't know that. Yeah, I just want to say I was not reacting to you having big thoughts. I was reacting to your big thoughts being negative.
But no,
that was what I had the problem with.
That's a revision of the record. Like, I mean, as soon as I said
as soon as you said, "Oh, I've got big thoughts on this," we all knew that they were negative big thoughts. Okay. Yeah, well, the whole world knew.
I feel like I have
already written off this entire podcast because Jesse doesn't like the Homer hose.
I feel like I have very good justifications for not even if we disagree and you like it, I feel like you should at least be able to understand my perspective and say, okay, yeah, I see.
Yeah, but I'm ignoring it because you disagree with me.
Right?
America in 2023. What I would say about it is apparently the origin story is that Cole Irvin in AAA now and Keegan Aiken together made the Homer hose. They fashioned it. Say what you will about the Homer hose. I don't know that it looks like two brains came together to like produce it. It's a lopped off hose with a piece of orange tape around it and like whatever funnel was the cheapest on Amazon.
Right.
I think the production could use some work. I think it needs to be revised, is what I would say.
Yeah.
It's not the most appealing. I've heard this take a couple of other places. This is not original. I know Talking Baseball podcast said it's too long. The hose is too long. Funnel's too small. So we could work with it. We can evolve it. We can iterate on it. That's a word I hear at work all day in meetings. We're going to iterate on that idea. Okay. That means we're going to change it, guys. That's all that means. So I don't know. I look, I think it's fun. A lot of teams have these celebrations now. Have you seen the Angels have like a samurai helmet they put on somebody? Jesse would hate that too. I already know that. I don't even have to ask him about it. So I like it. I like that the spirit of Rougned Odor is still alive. I haven't seen what the Padres are doing now. I don't know if he went in that locker room and spiced things up. Maybe he doesn't have the juice over there, but
I think that the Padres have enough
they had enough things going on.
Excitement. They've got Manny, they've got Soto, like they've got some personality.
They don't need a celebration. The Orioles, we need a celebration, I guess, is what you're
I mean, I like it though. There's an energy about it. I think the fans are into it. And it'll get better. And I think it's fun that like every year has a different theme or whatever. Not the binoculars and the chain didn't really go together. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because this is all like a theme. I think that's fun, and it kind of gives each year its own like identity.
Right.
So it's neat.
That's a huge part of it to me. I think it's just like, regardless of what the celebration is, I think just like continuing to have a thing that it's like, this is what us Orioles do. This is who we are. This is how we celebrate with each other. Yeah. I think like that's where my excitement for it comes from. It's like the act of having that thing that is so like intrinsic to the identity of your team, I think is what's so special about it. Yeah.
It's more important than what it actually is.
Yeah, for sure.
There'll be a t-shirt giveaway that's related to the water thing in some way, shape, or form. They'll have a theme night or whatever. And because, that's what baseball is sort of all about. They play so many games. Not every game is going to be a sellout. You got to do gimmicky stuff to get people in the seats. Right. And it's just, they did the chain thing last year a little bit. So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. You're declaring it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's like the best celebration of all time, but it's different. Right. It's fun. Yeah. It gives baseball some character, which it needs.
I guess, right. And I get that. I guess what my thing is like, you have so much time and you have so many heads in the dugout to try to figure out something really, really cool and innovative. It's like when, people don't have good goal celebrations. It's like you only score a handful of games every year, when it's your time in the spotlight, when it's your time to shine, you need to have it. I think it should be spectacular, and you should put a lot of thought and a lot of thinking into that. You know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
so the Orioles, they had the entire offseason to construct something that was really, really cool. They had 40 guys or 25 guys or whatever to do it, and I feel like it's a little subpar. So
I think
I
you
will
overestimate how much time these guys have to just dedicate to celebration talk.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys didn't even know they were going to make the team. You're
that's
going to make a roster.
That's true.
Worried about a whole lot of other things.
What about the airplanes out to like the A's? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, they haven't gone to Oakland yet this year, so.
Oh, right. We played that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, true. That's a good point.
We're on top of things here.
But still, yeah. But in any case,
You're right. You're right. You're right, Jesse.
I just think they could have been better.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the topics we've got for this week, folks. I know our schedule's here and there. We're trying to do these as often as possible. It's probably going to be like once every 2 weeks or so. So get used to kind of that cadence here for a little while. In the week ahead, the Orioles have got 2 games on the road in DC. Then they welcome the Tigers for a 3-game set before the Red Sox for 3 more. And then they go to Detroit for a 4-game set after that to wrap up the month of April. So, we'll definitely be back to talk about some of that, see if any moves have been made in the interim. What you can do if you want to support the podcast is follow us on all the various social medias, although Twitter is the big one at The Warehouse Pod. You can also get in touch with the show by emailing thewarehousepod@gmail.com. And above all else, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever your preferred podcast platform is, Spotify, TuneIn. I think we're on all of them. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, we are there. So check us out.
No, Tyler, you have to go ahead and list them out, though.
Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Stitcher. I don't know. If you're using something other than those, I don't know what you're doing. If you're maybe go to our website. You can go to thewarehousepod.substack.com.
You're insulting me. I don't use any of those.
Google Podcasts. Is that
That's what Google Podcasts.
Sorry. Yeah, Eli is the reason I can't text the group on my computer. I have to use my actual phone. Ridiculous.
God forbid. Oh my goodness. How can we rectify this injustice?
Well, it's all right. It's okay. Don't worry about it, Eli. I'm over it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's about all we've got to plug, guys. Anything else I should mention before we get out? No? All right.
I'm good. Go O's.
Yeah, go O's. Keep winning some games. Stay on that 90+ win pace. And
keep winning some games, but play better. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of April is a pretty soft schedule. Nationals, Tigers, Red Sox, Tigers.
I was going to say, we're definitely seeing the benefits of this more even schedule, especially with how insane these AL East teams seem to be this year,
No team in the AL East has a negative run differential right now.
Yeah.
The Red Sox are under 500, though, as of today. But
yeah, they lost to the Angels.
Yeah.
That is unrelated to the thing that I just said.
Okay. It's related. Okay. It is very related. Even if it's, it's very related. Anyway.
The brotherly love coming off this podcast.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like we didn't have that many disagreements, for the first, whatever many minutes of the show. And then at the end, it's just like.
When it comes to celebration talk, that's when the Ginsburg brothers are in opposite camps.
Clearly.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Until next time, this has been the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
And as always, go O's.